checkmarked into NATO. All the documents are in a row. What are you doing behind the scenes to prepare for your border, 135-mile border at Russia, to be a part of the eastern flank?
You have to keep in mind that unlike many other countries, we in Finland, after Cold War ended, still kept on being aware that something might someday happen. That means that, for example, we maintain conscription, which means that we have 300,000 trained reserves, which is more than a lot bigger countries in Europe. We have, purchased F-35s, quite an amount before the attack. So we have always been prepared to protect our borders. And joining NATO surely gives, in my thinking, more coverage that nothing will happen. But if something happens, we are prepared to take our share and to keeping the borderline.
So this is an advancement of your defense of this in-case scenario. In December of 2021, Putin demanded that NATO ratchet back this territory on the eastern flank that was basically built up over a quarter century. Then he demanded that there would be no expansion as well. You came out and you said he's trying to create this sphere of influence around Russia.
That was a game changer in our eyes, because so far we had always thought and said that from our own will we remain militarily underlined. But who believes it after Putin says that, well, you can't join? So that was a real game changer in Finnish thinking.
But do you think he considers Sweden and Finland part of his sphere of influence?
When he said that he demands that NATO doesn't enlarge anymore, practically it means that he wanted a NATO-free zone in front of Russia.
I also want to ask you, because you just came off this meeting with President Biden, there obviously is an election in the United States next year. Former President Trump is in that election. He wants to be back at the White House, and he in the past has criticized NATO. Are you concerned about a change of power dynamics here in Washington, especially before this is signed on the dotted line, done deal of your ascension into the military alignment?
I think our application will be fully ratified long before your new elections. We have to keep in mind that as President, Trump often said things about NATO, pointing out especially, like many of his predecessors, that Europe has to take its part, that is that 2%. So this is what we have experienced so far from him.
You're also going to be speaking to politicians. How concerned are you about the U.S. potentially wanting to claw back or hamper down some of that aid they're sending to Ukraine?
What has now happened in Ukraine and in our minds, in Western minds, is that we are more united over Atlantic than ever before, I would say. And I see no ways to somehow end up to some kind of different.
Did you see the recent reporting that potentially it was a Ukrainian group that was responsible for the Nord Stream sabotage? Do you think an act like that will make it more difficult for some Western nations to provide aid to Kyiv?
I don't know, and I do not believe that anybody knows the real truth. Let's wait.
Because it was in
investigations like Swedes are doing all the time in investigations, so let's see where they end up.
I also want to ask you, in the face of this conflict, China has not come out and condemned it, and we actually see Xi Jinping will be making a visit to Moscow. What are the concerns that you're seeing in terms of China crossing this line and providing lethal weapons or aid to Moscow?
First of all, China wants to have connection to Europe. It's an important market for them. And I would say that it would be wise for China to understand that ordinary people in Europe, in free world, have an opinion. And if China is seen as a supporter of Russia, that would have a huge impact on people's mind. And in free world, what people think, it reflects also to policies. So Chinese image, in a way, is also at stake here.
Was China brought up in your conversations in Washington?
Like I said, we discussed about global situation.
And China is obviously a main factor of that.
China is in that discussion, surely.
You're also here with Finnish businesses. You're buying some more jets from Lockheed Martin. Do you feel like this NATO alliance and your ascension into NATO has opened up more economic cooperation between Finland and the United States?
That we can say, and the idea with my business delegation is not focused on that. You have to keep in mind that Finns, in spite of our quite small size, we are quite advanced in some sectors of new technologies, and I think
Nokia 5G,
6G, artificial intelligence, and quantum technology, which is very important. We have quite a lot know-how on those, and I think that so far